Welcome to Something Different. A place where every video is made to capture your attention and leave an impression. If you enjoy content that feels unique and engaging, subscribe and stay with us. The lasagna was still in the oven when my phone lit up on the kitchen counter at 6:07 p.m. I'm staying at Dad's tonight. Sorry, Mom. 8 words. No punctuation after sorry. No call. I stood there with oven mitts on my hands, steam rising from the pot of garlic bread I just pulled from the rack, and I read those 8 words 3 times before the heat from the mitts started to feel unbearable. I set the pot down. I set the phone down. I stood at the kitchen counter of my house and looked at the table I'd spent the better part of an afternoon setting the good plates. The ones with the tiny gold rim my mother gave me when I moved into my first apartment, the cloth napkins I'd ironed that morning. The little glass candle holders I'd bought specifically because my daughter once told me she loved how candlelight made a room feel like it was holding its breath. My name is Paige, and this was supposed to be our Christmas Eve. I need to back up. 3 years ago, my husband of 9 years sat across from me at this same kitchen table and told me he'd been unhappy for a long time. He said it the way you'd explain a weather forecast, measured, apologetic in tone but not in feeling. He had already spoken to a lawyer. He had already, it would turn out, been seeing someone else for 14 months. I found that last part out from a mutual friend 6 weeks after he moved into the apartment that, I would later learn, his girlfriend had helped him pick out. Our daughter was 12 when it happened. She had been sitting upstairs doing homework, and I remember thinking, as he spoke, that I needed to keep my voice low. I didn't cry until I heard her come down the stairs to ask what was for dinner, and I managed to hold myself together long enough to say leftover pasta. And then I went to the bathroom and sat on the floor for 20 minutes with the water running. The divorce took 11 months. He married her 11 months after that. I want to be precise about this because the timeline matters. My daughter attended the wedding. She was in the wedding party. She wore a pale pink dress that his new wife had picked out. And in the photos that his sister posted on Facebook, photos I wasn't meant to see but did anyway, my daughter was laughing at something his wife had whispered in her ear, and they looked in a way that made something cold move through my chest, like they matched. I told myself I was grateful. My daughter deserved people who loved her. More love in her life was a good thing, a generous thing, and I repeated that to myself the way you repeat something when you're trying to make yourself believe it. What I hadn't fully prepared for was the slow accumulation of small replacements. It started with things I could almost rationalize. His wife drove my daughter to school on the days that fell during her time with him, which was fine. His wife came to the spring recital and sat in the front row, which was fine, less fine. His wife started appearing in my daughter's Instagram posts with captions like Girls' Day and heart emojis, which was, I told myself, also fine, because I was the mother. Nothing could change that. I was the one who had held her through every fever and every bad dream, who knew that she still slept with the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2, who knew that she hated the sound of ceiling fans and loved the smell of rain on concrete. But then, sometime in the fall before this Christmas, something shifted. My daughter started calling less. Texts went unanswered for hours, sometimes a full day. When she was with me, she was present in body but somewhere else entirely, scrolling, earbuds in, giving me the particular half-attention teenagers reserve for people they love but no longer feel they need to perform for. I told myself that was normal. That was 15. That had nothing to do with anything. Then, in October, she mentioned in passing that her stepmother had taken her to get her ears pierced. My daughter had been asking to get her ears pierced since she was 9. We had agreed, together, that she would wait until she was 16. It was our agreement, the two of us, made over pancakes on a Sunday morning, sealed with a handshake that she thought was hilarious. I had been looking forward to taking her. I had a whole thing planned: the salon, lunch after, maybe a small pair of studs I'd been setting aside. His wife had taken her on a Tuesday afternoon. She was 15 and 4 months. I didn't say anything. I smiled and said they looked beautiful. And they did, and I swallowed everything else whole. I tell you this because it matters to understand what Christmas Eve meant to me. Every year since my daughter was 3 years old, we had made lasagna together on Christmas Eve. Her grandmother's recipe, my mother's recipe, technically my grandmother's before that, the one with the bechamel sauce and the Italian sausage and the layer of spinach that my daughter used to pick out and then gradually started eating and eventually decided she liked. We'd made it every single year, just the two of us, with Christmas music playing from my phone propped up against the fruit bowl. She had a specific job. She layered the noodles. She took it very seriously. She would hold each noodle at exactly the same angle and lower it into the pan, with a focused expression that I found heartbreakingly earnest for a task that required no precision whatsoever. The year her father and I separated, we made it anyway. She was 12 and quiet, and she layered every noodle with her usual seriousness, and when we sat down to eat she said, "It's still the same, Mom," and I didn't trust myself to respond, so I just nodded and put more garlic bread on her plate. The year after that, same. The year after that, same. This year, I had texted her father 3 weeks in advance to confirm. She would be with me on Christmas Eve. He had confirmed. My daughter had confirmed. She had, 2 days before, texted me asking if we had enough mozzarella and whether she could borrow my good sweater for something, the kind of casual, assumed communication that felt like home. I went to the grocery store the morning of Christmas Eve. I bought the mozzarella and 2 extra cans of crushed tomatoes and the specific brand of Italian sausage from the butcher counter because my daughter had once said the other kind was weirdly sweet and I'd never bought it again. I stopped at the bakery and got the little chocolate butter cookies she liked, the ones that come in a tin. I came home and started the bechamel at 2 in the afternoon and put on the Christmas playlist we'd had since she was small, the one that starts with Nat King Cole and ends with her childhood favorite. A quirky little song about a snowman that she has never outgrown and that I have never told her I find sort of unbearable, because her face when it plays is worth any amount of unbearable. I set the table for 2. I ironed the napkins. I lit the candle holders. And at 6:07 p.m., my phone lit up with 8 words and no punctuation. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after that. Long enough for the candles to burn down about half an inch. Long enough for the lasagna to finish in the oven. I took it out. I set it on the counter. I looked at the golden cheese on top, the way the edges had crisped exactly right, the way it smelled like every Christmas Eve of my daughter's life. And I picked up my phone and called her. She didn't answer. I called her father. He picked up on the 3rd ring with the particular tone he uses when he knows he should feel bad about something but has decided in advance that he doesn't. She just decided she wanted to stay, he said. You know how teenagers are. We had a plan, I said. She's 15, Paige. She's allowed to change her mind. I didn't say anything else. I hung up. I sat down at the table set for 2, in front of a dinner I had spent 4 hours making, and I looked at the empty chair across from me and at the place setting I had arranged for my daughter, her grandmother's plates, the gold-rimmed ones, a cloth napkin folded the way she liked. The glass she always used, and the silence in that room was the loudest thing I had ever heard. I don't know how long I sat there. The candles burned. The lasagna cooled. At some point I picked up my phone, not to call anyone, just to have something to hold. And when I opened Instagram, I don't know why I opened Instagram, the first thing I saw was a post from his wife. She was a person who documented everything online, meticulously, with a decorator's eye and captions that always struck me as written for an audience she was auditioning for rather than anyone she actually knew. She posted their dinners and their vacations and their home renovation progress, and I had, over the years, developed a somewhat involuntary familiarity with the contours of her life through the posts my daughter tagged her in or was tagged in herself. The photo she had posted at 5:58 p.m. 9 minutes before my daughter had texted me, showed the 3 of them at their dining room table. My ex-husband, his wife, my daughter. Their table was enormous and styled like a magazine spread, with a centerpiece of eucalyptus and white candles and matching charger plates. My daughter was wearing a red velvet headband I had never seen before, looking at something off camera, laughing. She looked happy. She looked, I will be honest, completely at home. The caption read, "Christmas Eve, with my whole family. So grateful for these 2. Our girl. Our girl." I put my phone face down on the table. Then I picked it back up and looked at the caption again, because part of me thought I had misread it. Our girl. I set it down again. Here is what I want to say about that moment, because I think it's important. I did not feel rage. I had expected, if something like this ever happened, that I would feel rage. What I actually felt was something quieter and more total, the particular sensation of watching the last piece of something leave a room. Like the moment after a door closes when you realize you didn't say what you meant to say and the person is already gone. I had been so careful. I had been so careful for 3 years to make space for this woman in my daughter's life, to never speak badly of her, to respond warmly when my daughter mentioned her, to send thank you texts when she drove my daughter to things, to fold my own grief small enough that it would take up less air in the room. I had given and given and given ground, the way you do when you love someone enough to rearrange your own pain around them. And she had sat at a magazine spread table with my daughter on Christmas Eve and typed our girl for 412 people to see. I blew out the candles. I covered the lasagna. I went into the living room and I stood in front of the Christmas tree for a long time. Under the tree were my daughter's gifts. I had spent weeks on them, not extravagantly, but thoughtfully, in the way that is actually harder. A book she'd mentioned once in passing and probably thought I hadn't heard. A film camera, the vintage kind she'd admired in a shop window and then said maybe someday about in the resigned voice of someone who doesn't expect to get things. And a box. That box is the thing I need to explain. Every year of my daughter's life, on Christmas Eve, I had made her an ornament. I'd started when she was an infant, with a small clay circle stamped with her handprint, and I had done it every year since 15 ornaments over 15 years. Each one specific to that year, to something she'd loved or done or become. There was the year she learned to read, and the ornament had a tiny painted book on it. There was the year she became obsessed with horses, and I'd carved a small one from balsa wood. There was the year her grandfather passed away, and the ornament had his initial on it, in the same font as his old watch. I had planned to give her all 15 this Christmas, in that box, along with a note explaining what each one meant. A kind of record. A way of saying, I have been paying attention every year of your life. I see you. I have always seen you. I stood in front of the tree, and I looked at that box and I thought about my daughter at a table that looked like a magazine and his wife typing our girl with her manicured hands. Then I went to the kitchen and I called my best friend. She arrived 25 minutes later, with a bottle of wine she'd clearly grabbed on the way, because it was still cold from a store refrigerator, and she had her coat on over her pajamas, which is exactly the kind of person she is. She didn't say much when she came in. She looked at the table set for two and the covered lasagna and the burned-down candles and she said, "Oh, honey." And she set the wine down and hugged me for long enough that I had to say I was okay just to get her to stop. We ate the lasagna. It was, for the record, very good. She sat with me while I talked, which is different from sitting with someone while they perform their feelings for an audience. I didn't want validation. I had been the wronged party before in the divorce, in the smaller moments of the past 3 years, and I knew the particular trap of letting your anger feed itself on other people's agreement. What I wanted was to think out loud until I found the thing that was actually true. What hurts the most? She asked at some point. I thought about it seriously. That my daughter didn't call, I said. She texted. 8 words. No punctuation. Not the Instagram post? The Instagram post is just that's her stepmother being her stepmother. My daughter not calling is my daughter deciding that a text was enough. We sat with that for a while. What are you going to do? She asked. I already knew. I'd known since I was standing in front of the tree. In the morning, I did 3 things. The first thing I did was pack up the lasagna, what was left, which was most of it, along with the garlic bread and the butter cookies and the extra mozzarella I'd bought, and I drove to the drop-in shelter 3 miles away. They were open Christmas morning. The woman at the front desk had a Santa hat on and very tired eyes, and she said God bless you when I brought in the food, and I drove home with the windows down despite the cold because I needed the air. The second thing was the ornaments. I took the box from under the tree. I sat at the kitchen table and I went through all 15, one at a time, holding each one for a moment. The handprint from when she was an infant, pink-rimmed and impossibly small. The horse. The book. Her grandfather's initial. The one from the year of the divorce, which I had almost not made because I didn't know if there was anything worth marking from that year, and then had made anyway because she had survived it, which seemed worth marking. I put all 15 back in the box. I drove to the children's hospital. I had called ahead, and they connected me with someone in the activities department who said they would give them to kids spending Christmas on the ward. I left the box at the front desk. Without a note, without an explanation, without anything attached. Just a box of 15 ornaments made over 15 years by a mother who had been paying attention. I drove home and sat in my car in the driveway for a little while. The third thing was harder. I went inside, and I sat down and I wrote my daughter a letter. Not an email, not a text, a letter, by hand, on the stationery I'd bought years ago, and rarely used. I wrote it 3 times before I got it right. I didn't write it in anger. I want to be very clear about that, because it would be easy to make this into a story about anger, and it isn't. I wrote it in something colder and more considered than anger. I told her that I loved her, without condition. I told her that I would always be her mother regardless of where she spent her holidays or what anyone's Instagram captions said. I told her that I had made her 15 ornaments over 15 years and given them to children in the hospital who couldn't be home for Christmas. And that I didn't tell her that to make her feel guilty. I told her because I wanted her to know that love, when it has nowhere to go, doesn't just disappear. It finds somewhere to be useful. I told her that I would not be available in the same way I had been. That I had been available in ways that, I now understood, had cost me more than I'd let myself admit, and that a Christmas Eve alone with a dinner going cold while she texted 8 words and her stepmother typed "our girl" for 400 people was the moment I understood that I had to stop rearranging myself to fit into the space I'd been given. I told her that I was not going anywhere. But I was going somewhere else. I sealed the envelope. I addressed it to her father's house where she mostly lived now. A fact I had been soft-pedaling in my own mind for months. I put a stamp on it. I drove to the mailbox on the corner and I let it go. Then I drove to my parents' house for Christmas dinner, and I ate my mother's cooking, and I sat next to my nephew who had just turned 4 and was completely obsessed with construction equipment, and I let him explain excavators to me in exhaustive detail for 45 minutes, and by the end of it I felt more like myself than I had in a very long time. I should tell you what happened after, because I know you want to know. I wanted to know too. At the time I wanted consequence, wanted the story to have weight on both ends. Here is what actually happened. My daughter called me 4 days later. She had received the letter. She was crying when she called, which I hadn't expected. She said she was sorry. She said it more than once, in the way that people say it when they mean it, which is different from how they say it when they're apologizing for something they plan to do again. I let her talk. She said she hadn't understood, and then she stopped. And started again. She said she hadn't let herself understand what it meant when she texted instead of called, what it meant when she stayed. I didn't tell her it was okay. It wasn't okay. I told her I heard her and that I loved her and that I was still her mother. The ornaments, she said. Mom, the ornaments. I know. I said. I didn't know what they were. I know you didn't. There was a long silence on the phone. Can we make lasagna? She asked finally. Yes, I said. But not to fix anything. Just because it's good lasagna. She laughed a little at that, and it sounded like her, the real version of her, the one underneath all the 15ness and the red velvet headband and the new life she'd been building in a house that looked like a magazine. I had been afraid, somewhere in the past year, that I was losing that version. That she was being gently, incrementally, very successfully replaced by a version his wife preferred. I don't know what happened between her and her stepmother after the letter. I didn't ask. I don't know if his wife ever understood what that caption cost, or if she even knew there was anything to understand. Some people move through other people's lives with the particular certainty of those who have never been made to account for the space they take up, and I've learned that waiting for those people to reckon with themselves is a way of letting them keep the clock. What I know is that the following February, my daughter came to my house on a Sunday afternoon, unprompted, with a grocery bag. She put it on the counter. Italian sausage. Mozzarella. Crushed tomatoes. The spinach she now admits she likes. I didn't say anything. She pulled up the Christmas playlist on her phone and propped it against the fruit bowl. She put on an apron and stood next to me at the counter. And when we got to the part where she layers the noodles, she picked up the first one and lowered it into the pan at exactly the same careful angle she'd used when she was 3 years old. Focused, precise, as if the noodle required all the attention she had. I watched her and I thought, this is mine. No caption can have this. No perfectly styled table, and no matching charger plates, and no amount of someone else's claiming can touch this, because this is made of the particular substance that is only produced by 15 years of handprints and horse ornaments and bad years and good years and the specific knowledge that she still sleeps with the rabbit she's had since she was 2. I had been afraid, for a while, that love could be outbid. That someone with more money or a bigger house or a more Instagram-worthy Christmas table could, over time, simply accumulate my daughter's allegiance until the original thing was buried under the weight of all the new and shiny things. What I understand now is that love cannot be outbid. It can be crowded. It can be confused. A 15-year-old girl in a red velvet headband can laugh at someone else's table, and it can look, from the outside, like replacement. It can feel from the inside like you are watching yourself be erased in real time. But erasure requires your participation. And I had, quietly, been participating by making myself smaller, by being grateful for the space I was allowed, by pressing my grief into corners where it wouldn't inconvenience anyone. I stopped doing that. I am still her mother. I am, more than I was before, my own person, the one who exists when no one needs anything from me, the one who drives to the shelter on Christmas morning and listens to 45 minutes of excavator facts at her parents' table and feels genuinely fine. There is something I read somewhere in the weeks after that Christmas Eve, sitting alone at a table set for two with the candles burning down and the lasagna going cold. I wrote it on a piece of paper and taped it to my refrigerator, where it still is. The most radical thing you can do is refuse to disappear. I had been so busy making room for everyone else that I had slowly, without noticing, made very little room for myself. The table is mine again. And the lasagna is better when it's made with someone who actually shows up.
Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to. There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. They say just forget, move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close. like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal, but now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true.